Hey everyone, Peter here. So recently Reckoner was picked for the ETFL map pool, and it was picked over Sunshine, which I'm looking at here. And I was kind of upset about that because I actually think that Sunshine is a much better map than Reckoner. So instead of actually go cry on the forums, I figured I'd actually make a video and talk about like why I think this map is kind of good and what's bad about it, and maybe we can figure out why this was ditched in favor of Reckoner. And hopefully you guys can share your thoughts too once I've done been ranting. So just first off, let's talk about terrain, right? This map features a lot of uneven terrain, and I really like that. So a lot of maps, especially if you think like Granary, has really boring flat terrain. So what's flat terrain? It's basically like this area, this concrete slab right here, completely flat. Same for this like little stretch right here, all flat. Same over here, all flat. Right, so there's some flat areas in here on Sunshine. However, most of the map is actually like filled with these little gentle slopes, right, up and down. And that means that someone standing here has an advantage over someone standing here. So that's just very short amount of distance, and there's not like a significant like dip down like here that makes for that advantage. It's just by moving from here to here, you actually gain an advantage. So you're just moving a little bit, and every time you take one step, you gain a small advantage or lose a small advantage compared to where other people are at other times. So it's pretty complicated, and that's a good thing, right? Like, so here's a small advantage for someone standing here next to a wall, someone standing down here, right? So there's just like these all sorts of small bumps all over the place. And I think Sunshine is really good about this. Like, same for mid, most of it. Like, there's this gentle slope down here. Goes up, and like here's sort of the peak, and then, or here maybe, right, but then you're next to a wall. So basically things are complicated. So I really like that, and I think Sunshine does a really good job of doing this. And pretty much the only place where this isn't the case is Last, and incidentally Last is one of the worst points on the entire map. But we'll get to that later. I think the next thing I will talk about is sort of the flank areas. I think this is a map that compares pretty favorably to a map like Process, where you have like the choke that you go through, and then you have two side entrances, right? So this would basically be like PC, and this would be like sewers, right? So that's basically just mirrored from Process. But I actually think here on Sunshine, these areas are much better than they are in Process. Especially this area right here. It's very good. First of all, you have the gentle slopes and all that good stuff, but you also have a lot of open space, and you have broken sightlines. And that's really important. So that means that if someone is standing here, I can jump from over here, over this wall, and I can catch him by surprise, and I can get a kill. And like a scout can help me by running across the wall. So basically there's broken sightlines, and this enables people to initiate fights. And that's really important, because that will break stalemates, and stalemates are just the bane of competitive TF2. And I think stalemates are actually one of the reasons why people don't like this map. So if you want to look at like a more boring flank, this is the boring flank right here. Everything's very enclosed, it's completely flat ground, and it's just this small entrance right here that you can't really make anything out of, and it's like a perfect sightline from over here, which is kind of like one of the few sniper sightlines that's really crazy. The other one, like over from that house to here, where you can like snipe medics. So that's also one aspect of this map is the sniper sightlines. I won't go into those too much because they're very few and far between. It's just those two or three that maybe are on this map are kind of powerful. But anyway, so I talked a little bit about sightlines, right? So we say here, right, we have this long sightline. So that means like a sniper standing here can completely shut down this entire area, and he can also look over here. So this position right here is very powerful because of sightlines. Also on middle, this is one of my least favorite middles on a lot of maps. And it's just because when you stand on this hut, you can pretty much see everything, right? Like the only broken sight lines is over here. I can't see someone coming from Cafe. Right? So a guy from Cafe can jump in and maybe stand on this left or something, right? But that's the only blind spot on the entire map. If a soldier goes up here or tries to go over here, maybe he can stand behind this hut. But like as soon as he goes out, I can see him, and there's just so much distance to cover. And if I stand up here, I can also see him. So basically, this makes it really difficult for you to get a drop on someone on a mid-fight. And that's usually how you just initiate any kind of mid-fight or a fight in general in TF2, is to get the surprise, right? Like if you could stand down here, hide, and then jump up, right? You can maybe catch a demo standing too far forward because he would overextend because he wouldn't know where the opponent was. So that is a really good thing on mid fights. It's kind of the other extreme from what we see on this map is Granary, where everything's completely covered up and you can't see anything because of those giant crates. So maybe Granary is a bit too bad, right? But I still think Granary is actually better than this just because of all the broken sightlines, right? And I talked over here like how this is a broken sightline, even though you can actually go up above it, right? So I think this is really well designed. This flank area is great. It's one of the best parts of this map, for sure. Then you have this long sightline here, right? But anyway, and then this sideline here is problematic, and there's also a sniper sideline, like from this house where you can see above this fence, and you can actually snipe a medic here. But it's a very corner case. But middle is very much not very fun to play, just because this, like a scout can see everything, and the entire enemy team can see everything, so they won't overextend unnecessarily, and you can't like be clever. Pretty much the only thing you can do is go from cafe, hide here, and then jump in, and maybe stand on this high ground. That's basically it. Right, so it's too open, and I think a lot of people dislike this mid for that reason, me included. And then the worst part of this map, by far, is last point. And last point is way too difficult to push on this map. And I think there's a couple of reasons for this. And I'll just kind of go. I think I've mentioned this before in the cast that this last point actually reminds me of Freight. And I'll go and let me explain, right? So probably the best avenue of attack for a team is actually to go bottom, because the enemy can't see you coming from bottom, right? Like they can only see you once you peek this corner. Once you're here, they can see you, but they can't react to you actually coming in until they see you passing this corner, unless you go like this way. But most people will just go this way and then in. Right, and that will actually sometimes enable you to catch people out if they're like standing here. Right. So that's kind of a good, just because it's close, but it's low ground, so you have all this terrible, like you can't stay here, right? Once you're in, you have to like go all the way in here and then maybe out here, right? You can't rotate like you can on Badlands or other maps like that. There's just no way, right? If you commit here, you either go all the way in, or you just like stand here as a medic and then buff a bunch of people and Uber them in, and then you go out, right? Because you can't stand here. This is just too bad. You have to like go up here on this flat ground right here. Everything's also flat on this last. It makes splash way too easy and punishing in general to take care of. And then the second issue is this sight line right here. Like this sight line right here basically means that this door is useless, or it's too risky to use in general, because there will almost always be a sniper, because a sniper can just stand here with almost no risk to himself. So this sight line right here needs to be broken. Like you'd have to like move the door further over here, or you'd have to like move it over here and allow this to be an area where you could come in from this side or something. But just as it is, this whole side is basically too risky to use in normal play, right? Like it's just not good enough. So that means that you're limited to this entrance right here, which is on the low ground, or this high ground one. This is high ground, but there's walls all over you, so you get splashed easily, and you're usually very far away from the enemy combo. So if the enemy combo is standing over here, like they have so much ground to cover, and it's just very difficult to actually get a force out of the medic, or just cover enough ground to get enough kills. And there's also a pretty big last point. It's pretty easy at least to rotate around, and for the medic to hide and spawn and then just go out the other entrance. So just overall, I think this is a very bad last point. I will say though that like we see the point right here, it's kind of far forward, right? Like you can't just watch it from spawn, from neither spawn. This one you kind of can if you lob these over here and whatnot. So maybe this entrance should be moved back somewhat, or the point should be moved further forward, right? So maybe the point would be over here. That way the point would be kind of difficult to hold. But either way, like one of the worst things about watching games on this map and casting games on this map is to just how often everything gets stalemated on last, and people will just suicide people in over and over and over again, or play sniper and try to get a pick. And it just really takes the gas out of the entire map. And I do believe it's because of this sight line this low ground area and this way too cramped and too far away entrance, and you don't really have a good avenue of attack for last almost ever. So if you could somehow make, I don't know, like I don't know if the gentle slopes would apply in here. I think it's kind of fine to have this area. There's a lot of height advantages and height differences on this map, so, or on this last point. So maybe that's kind of fine. I won't be giving any critique for that specifically, but this last point definitely still needs some work on. Maybe like make some more space behind this area. Like the area behind the point is usually something really good. Maybe if you would like move the spawn to like up here or something, that would make it interesting. I don't know. Like it's just if the area behind the point is not a death zone, that will allow attackers to actually go behind the point and make plays and force the enemy team to go out of position to deal with people, and then you can make openings happen. We see that all the time on Badlands. And even Granary now, like after they move the point forward. I really like moving the point forward toward the attackers, and just in general making it very difficult to hold. Like if you make last really difficult to hold and very easy to attack, you'll get a lot more rounds and high scoring games. And that is fun. And it's even for both teams, you know? So it's not like you should be afraid of making last too easy to cap. So that would be my advice for sure. Just make last way easier to cap. If you need to lower the cap time, if you need to move it forward, if you need to create more space behind, if you need to move the spawns back, there's a lot of opportunities for you to do it. So that would be my advice. The lobby area is pretty cool, I think. The only problem is this left side, which I've explained, because of the sight line. Like you can go and take the medkit, but then you usually just go over here and whatnot. Like you never ever use this entrance. If you can make this entrance more like desirable somehow to use, or less risky to use for the offense team, then that will be a lot better. This entrance is just terrible. Like as a medic, I will never ever stand here and then go in this way, because you just get sniped like 80% of the time. You always go in this way, and then you like go bottom, or you go top left, or maybe even go in this way if you think you can catch them off guard as you cross the corner. But overall, it's a very difficult last point to push, and I think it drags the entire map down. And I really do like this map. I think this second point is absolutely fine. We have this high ground over here next to the point where you can kind of see everything, but it's not the biggest of deals. I feel like this whole area is very, very good. And then cafe area is sort of admittedly not very cool. Like if you make this door bigger, it might help. If you make this wall a little bit wider, just so you can't see it as easily, you can make the wall see-through. It doesn't even matter. Just as long as you can actually stand in here and walk close without being sniped or without being completely spammed out, that would actually make pushes a lot easier. This choke area, like you can always make that bigger. I don't know, it maybe not be the biggest thing. I personally hate this arch up here, just because any kind of like cool tall jumps can get disrupted by that. Like you have to be through the choke before you go into the skybox. That's not the biggest of deals. I just really like hate these fun ruining arches. You know, Viaduct does it. A couple of other maps have these sort of choke things. I even remember Logjam had it. Just I don't like it, but that's not a big deal. But yeah, that's basically my thoughts on this map. I think middle is not very strong. I think there's too much open area and open sight lines here. Like you often see teams go sniper, where you can just put a sniper here and you can just see almost everything, and the rest of the team just sort of stand back. So if you can somehow disrupt sight lines on this middle, that would go a long way to make it more playable. Then second is great. This area is great. Cafe is pretty boring, but not the worst thing I've ever seen. And then the last point I really don't like. The lobby area is mostly fine. But yeah, that's it. If you have any thoughts, let me know in the comments, and otherwise just have a good day. I'll do a bunch of other maps.